The great hall of the Korvathi Empire stretched nearly a kilometer in length, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 ceremonial flames. War Master Threnzak stood before the assembled fleet commanders, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of absolute confidence. Behind him, a holographic display showed a small blue planet rotating slowly in the darkness of space. "Earth," he said, his voice carrying through the hall without amplification. "A single world, one star system, no faster than light travel, no energy shields, no plasma weapons." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "They are children playing with chemical rockets while we command the stars." The fleet commanders clicked their mandibles in agreement. For 2 centuries, the Korvathi Empire had swept across the galaxy, bringing 47 star systems under their control. 17 different species now served the Empire. Their world stripped of resources, their people forced into labor. Earth would be no different. Admiral Kresheva, commander of the 3rd Battle Group, rose from his seat. "How many ships do we send, War Master?" Threnzak's eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. "All of them. 10,000 warships. We will darken their sky with our vessels. When the humans look up, they will see only Korvathi steel, and they will know that resistance is meaningless." The hall erupted in celebratory clicks and roars. It was unprecedented. Never before had the Empire committed its entire military force to a single conquest. But Earth was special. The intelligence reports showed vast oceans of water, continents rich with rare minerals, and a population of over 8 billion, perfect for the labor camps. In the back of the hall, Science Officer Miraltesh remained silent. Her 3 eyes studied the data streaming across her personal display, and what she saw troubled her deeply. The humans had divided themselves into nearly 200 separate nations. They fought each other constantly, their history drenched in blood, wars that lasted years, decades, even centuries, weapons designed not just to kill but to destroy everything. She had spent months studying their cultural databases, intercepted from their primitive radio signals. The humans told stories about themselves, stories that should have served as warnings. Tales of soldiers who fought to the last breath, of cities that burned themselves rather than surrender, of ordinary people who became killers to protect their families. Miraltesh raised her hand. "War Master, I must speak." The celebration died down. Threnzak turned to her, his expression darkening. "Speak, Science Officer, but be brief. We have an invasion to launch." "The humans are dangerous," she said, her voice steady despite the hostile stares from the assembled commanders. "Not because of their technology, but because of their nature. They have spent their entire existence fighting their world, fighting each other, fighting for survival. Every generation has known war. They have developed thousands of ways to kill, and they practice these methods on themselves constantly." Admiral Kresheva laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stones. "They kill each other? Then they will die easily when faced with a real enemy." "No," Miraltesh insisted. "You do not understand. They have weapons capable of destroying their own planet. Chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. They have used these weapons on themselves and survived. They have written rules about warfare, then broken those rules when desperate. They know no limits." War Master Threnzak stepped down from the platform, approaching Miraltesh with slow, deliberate steps. "Science Officer, your concern is noted. But you forget one crucial fact. They are primitives. They have never faced an enemy from the stars. When our ships arrive, they will panic. They will surrender. And if they fight, they will die quickly because they have nothing that can harm us. Their nuclear weapons are planet-bound," Threnzak interrupted. "They have no way to reach our ships in orbit. We will destroy their launch facilities in the first hour. After that, they are helpless." He turned back to the assembled commanders. "This Science Officer sees shadows where there is only light. The humans are prey, nothing more. We are predators. The outcome is already decided." The commanders clicked their approval once more. Miraltesh sat down, knowing her warnings would go unheeded. She had done her duty. What happened next would prove her right or wrong. Over the following weeks, the greatest armada in galactic history assembled in the deep space beyond the Korvathi homeworld. 10,000 warships, each one capable of reducing a city to ash in minutes. Troop carriers holding millions of soldiers. Supply ships stocked with enough weapons and ammunition to fight for years. The logistics alone were staggering, but the Korvathi had perfected this process over centuries of conquest. War Master Threnzak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Fang, and watched as the fleet completed its final preparations. Soon they would activate their faster-than-light drives and make the jump to Earth. The journey would take 3 weeks. By his calculations, the war would be over in 3 days. "All ships report ready," his communications officer announced. Threnzak settled into his command throne. "Then let us begin. Set course for Earth. The Empire grows today, and we will be remembered as the conquerors of humanity." The fleet activated their drives, and 10,000 ships vanished into the unreality of faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the Korvati homeworld celebrated. Ahead of them, Earth spun quietly in space, unaware that an army of aliens approached. But in her quarters aboard the Crushing Fang, Miral Tesh did not celebrate. She reviewed the human data files one more time, focusing on a particular phrase that appeared repeatedly in their literature and entertainment, 3 words that seemed to define their species. Never give up. She hoped for the sake of the fleet that it was merely fiction. The Korvathi armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 10,000 ships materialized in the darkness, their arrival sending ripples through local space. On the bridge of the Crushing Fang, War Master Threnzak watched the blue planet appear on his displays with satisfaction. "Begin scanning," he ordered. "Locate their military installations, their government centers, their communication networks. I want a complete picture before we move into orbit." The sensor teams worked quickly, their equipment far superior to anything humans possessed. Within minutes, they had mapped every major city, identified thousands of military bases, and intercepted countless radio and internet signals. The data painted a picture of a divided world, nations with different languages and governments, all unaware of the doom approaching from the stars. "War Master," the communications officer said, "shall we broadcast our demands for surrender?" Threnzak considered this. Standard protocol required offering terms before attacking. It saved resources and made occupation easier if the prey submitted peacefully. "Yes, transmit on all frequencies. Tell them we are the Korvathi Empire. Tell them resistance will result in their extinction. Give them 1 hour to respond." The message went out, translated into every major human language by the fleet's computers. Then they waited. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 4. "Sir," the communications officer said, confusion in his voice, "they are not responding to our demands, but they are communicating with each other at high speed. Their military frequencies are extremely active." War Master Threnzak frowned. This was unusual. Most species either panicked or immediately tried to negotiate. The humans were doing neither. "What are they saying?" "We cannot translate everything, but we detect keywords repeating across their networks. Words like evacuation, mobilization, and protocol." "They are preparing to evacuate," Admiral Kresheva said with amusement. "Running like frightened animals. Good. The chase makes the victory sweeter." But Miral Tesh, monitoring from her station, felt her skin prickle with unease. Evacuation was logical, but mobilization, protocol, those were military terms. The humans were not panicking. They were preparing. "War Master," she said, "I recommend caution. The humans are organized. They have procedures for this situation." "Procedures for alien invasion?" Threnzak laughed. "Impossible. They have never encountered alien life." "They have imagined it," Miral Tesh countered. "Their fiction is full of invasion scenarios. They have thought about this possibility for over a century. They may have plans." Threnzak waved dismissively. "Dreams and fiction mean nothing against real warships. Begin the advance. All ships move to orbital positions. Prepare landing forces for immediate deployment." The armada moved forward, 10,000 ships descending toward Earth like a metallic swarm. They expected to see chaos below. Cities in panic, roads clogged with fleeing civilians, governments collapsing. Instead, they saw something else entirely. The orbital space stations, small research facilities that humans maintained, were being deliberately destroyed. Not by the Korvathi, but by the humans themselves. They were scuttling their own infrastructure, denying the enemy any potential bases or resources. "What are they doing?" Admiral Kresheva demanded. "Why would they destroy their own property?" Miral Tesh knew, and the knowledge terrified her. Scorched earth. An old military strategy. Deny the enemy anything useful. They are preparing to make this expensive for us. As the fleet entered high orbit, Earth's military finally revealed itself, not through communication but through action. Missiles launched from dozens of locations, primitive chemical rockets that climbed slowly toward space. The Korvathi defensive systems destroyed them easily, swatting them from the sky like insects. Is that their best effort? Threnzak scoffed. Begin landing operations. Target the major population centers. New York, Beijing, Moscow, Mumbai, São Paulo. We will capture their leadership and end this quickly. The first wave of landing craft descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying 50,000 Korvathi soldiers. They landed in the centers of major cities, expecting to find cowering civilians or disorganized military resistance. Instead, they found empty streets. The cities had been evacuated, but not completely. As the Korvathi forces spread out from their landing zones, the attacks began. Snipers fired from high buildings, their primitive bullets somehow piercing Korvathi armor at weak points. Explosives detonated under marching columns, not sophisticated devices but simple bombs made from fertilizer and fuel. Buildings collapsed as the aliens entered them, entire structures rigged to fall. In Beijing, a Korvathi squad pursued what they thought was a fleeing civilian into a subway tunnel. The tunnel flooded with fire as humans ignited stored fuel. In Moscow, Korvathi vehicles found themselves stuck on streets covered in a strange substance that hardened like stone, trapping them for human anti-tank teams. In Mumbai, every building became a fortress, with humans fighting from room to room, refusing to retreat even when wounded. War Master Threnzak watched the reports with growing fury. His forces were not being defeated, they were being bled. Every block cost soldiers. Every building held a trap. The humans fought with a ferocity that made no sense. They were losing, but they fought as if victory was possible. Send reinforcements to all landing zones, he commanded. Double the forces. Triple them. We will overwhelm them with numbers. More ships descended. More troops poured into the cities. The fighting intensified, and still the humans did not break. They adapted instead. When the Korvathi brought heavier weapons, humans attacked supply lines. When the Korvathi used air support, humans hid underground and struck at night. When the Korvathi tried to take prisoners, the humans fought to the death rather than surrender. 3 days into the invasion, Admiral Kreshva requested an emergency council. His fleet section had lost 40 ships to suicide attacks. Human spacecraft, civilian vessels retrofitted with explosives, crashing into Korvathi warships. The pilots made no attempt to escape. They simply aimed their ships and died taking the enemy with them. This is madness, Kreshva said, his voice shaking. They are killing themselves to harm us. What kind of species does this? Miraltesh pulled up historical data on her display. A species that has practiced total war for thousands of years. A species that has survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars of extinction. They fight this way because they have always fought this way. Surrender is not in their nature. War Master Threnzak stood alone on his bridge, staring at the blue planet below. 3 days. He had predicted the war would be over in 3 days. Instead, he controlled nothing. His forces occupied landing zones only, surrounded by enemies who refused to accept defeat. His fleet was under constant harassment, and the humans showed no signs of weakening. For the first time in his long military career, Threnzak felt something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. Fear. 3 months had passed since the Korvathi armada arrived at Earth, and War Master Threnzak no longer spoke of quick victory. The holographic map before him showed a planet painted in red, every red marker representing a contested zone. There were no green markers indicating secure territory. After 3 months of brutal fighting, the Korvathi Empire controlled nothing except the ground their soldiers currently stood on. Casualty report, Threnzak said quietly, his voice hoarse from sleepless nights. The logistics officer hesitated before speaking. Ground forces have sustained 62% casualties. Fleet losses are at 41%. We have lost 4,100 ships to various forms of attack. The numbers were staggering. In 2 centuries of conquest, the Korvathi had never lost more than 15% of their forces in any campaign. Here on this backward planet, they were being destroyed piece by piece. How? Admiral Kreshva demanded, slamming his fist against the display table. How are these primitives doing this to us? Miraltesh had spent the last 3 months studying that exact question. She had analyzed thousands of battlefield recordings, interviewed survivors, and compiled a comprehensive report that no one wanted to read. But now with the fleet bleeding and morale collapsing, they finally listened. The humans have advantages we did not anticipate, she began, pulling up tactical data. First, they know their own planet intimately. Every city, every tunnel, every back road. We are fighting blind while they fight at home. Second, they have no central command structure to destroy. Each nation operates independently. Each city has its own defenders. Kill one leader and another replaces them immediately. Then we kill them all, Kreshva growled. We have tried, Miraltesh continued, but that leads to the third advantage. Humans do not require formal military training to become deadly. Their civilians transform into warriors within days. A factory worker becomes a bomb maker. A teacher becomes a sniper. A child becomes a scout for partisan forces. Every human is a potential combatant. She switched to footage from the ground. The assembled commanders watched in silence as the recordings played. A Korvathi patrol in what was once Paris, ambushed by humans who emerged from the sewers. A supply convoy in the Amazon, destroyed by indigenous tribes using arrows tipped with poison harvested from frogs. A command post in Tokyo, infiltrated by a teenager who detonated a suicide vest made from captured Korvathi explosives. They fight without honor, one commander said. They fight to win, Miraltesh corrected. Honor is a luxury they cannot afford. They use every weapon, every tactic, every advantage available. And they have one more advantage we fail to consider. They do not fear death. She pulled up psychological profiles compiled from captured human soldiers. The interviews were disturbing. When asked why they fought against impossible odds, the humans gave simple answers. It is my home. My family is here. Someone has to. They did not expect to survive, but they fought anyway because survival was less important than resistance. War Master Threnzak studied the data with tired eyes. Recommendations? Withdrawal, Miraltesh said bluntly. We cannot win this war. Not at any cost we are willing to pay. Impossible, Kreshva shouted. The Empire does not retreat. We have never retreated. Then we have never faced humans, Miraltesh replied. And we are learning what that means. The situation on the ground had deteriorated into nightmare scenarios that the Korvathi military had no procedures for handling. In North America, a Korvathi division found itself besieged in what was once downtown Chicago. The humans had surrounded them, cutting off supplies, and were slowly tightening the noose. The Korvathi could not retreat without being slaughtered in the streets, and they could not advance because every building was a fortress. In Africa, human forces had adopted the terrain to their advantage. Korvathi vehicles became trapped in jungles and deserts, their supply lines stretched thin, vulnerable to constant raids. The humans moved through the land like ghosts, striking and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. In Asia, the sheer population density worked against the invaders. For every human killed, 10 more appeared. The cities were labyrinths where Korvathi soldiers became lost and were picked off by defenders who knew every alley and rooftop. And then there were the nuclear weapons. When Korvathi forces approached certain defensive positions, the humans simply destroyed them with atomic fire. They nuked their own cities rather than let them fall. The radiation did not stop the humans. They fought through contaminated zones wearing primitive protective gear. Accepting the slow death from radiation is preferable to immediate surrender. They are insane, Admiral Kreshva whispered after watching footage of human soldiers fighting in the ruins of what was once Denver. The city reduced to radioactive rubble by its own defenders. Completely insane. No, Miraltesh said. They are desperate. And desperate humans are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The fleet suffered its own nightmares. Human spacecraft cobbled together from civilian vessels attacked constantly. They could not win direct engagements, so they did not fight directly. Instead, they used kamikaze tactics, crashing into Korvathi ships at high velocity. They launched kinetic weapons, simple metal rods accelerated to enormous speeds. They even used their space debris as weapons, altering orbital trajectories to send satellites and space junk into collision courses with the fleet. One particularly audacious attack saw a human crew capture a damaged Korvathi transport ship, repair it enough to fly, and then pilot it directly into the hangar bay of a Korvathi carrier. The explosion destroyed the carrier and 2 nearby destroyers. The human crew died instantly, but they took 3,000 Korvathi soldiers with them. They are making this personal, Threnzak realized. Every loss we inflict, they repay tenfold. Every city we damage, they defend with increased ferocity. We are not conquering them. We are making them angrier. His second-in-command approached hesitantly. War Master, I have received communications from the High Command. They are displeased with our progress. They demand results. Threnzak laughed bitterly. Results. Tell the High Command they are welcome to come here themselves and see what results look like against humans. But the High Command did not come to see. Instead, they sent orders. War Master Threnzak was to be executed for failure. A new commander, Veshkor, would take his place and would implement a new strategy. Total planetary bombardment. If the humans would not surrender, their world would be reduced to ash. Threnzak accepted his fate with dignity. Before his execution, he requested one final meeting with Miraltesh. In his quarters, with guards waiting outside, he spoke his last words to the science officer who had warned him. You were right, he said simply. I should have listened. Tell the new commander to leave this place. Tell him Earth is not worth the cost. He will not listen, Miraltesh replied, just as you did not listen. The Empire cannot accept defeat. Then the Empire will learn the hard way, Threnzak said. The humans have already won, Miraltesh. They just do not know it yet. Neither do we. The guards came and led him away. Miraltesh returned to her station and began compiling her final report, knowing it would be ignored. In the report, she included one particular observation that haunted her. In 3 months, the humans had suffered tens of millions of casualties. Their cities were in ruins. Their infrastructure was shattered. By every logical measure, they should have collapsed. Instead, they fought harder. They learned from every engagement, adapted to every tactic, and refused to break. They were not fighting to win anymore. They were fighting because fighting was what humans did. And that, Miraltesh realized, made them utterly unstoppable. Commander Veshkor stood where War Master Threnzak had once stood, but unlike his predecessor, he did not radiate confidence. He had read the reports. He had seen the casualty numbers. He knew what he faced. The High Command had given him clear orders. End this war immediately, whatever the cost. Prepare all ships for simultaneous planetary bombardment, he ordered, his voice grim. We will target every major population center, every military installation, every communications hub. If the humans will not surrender, we will burn their world to cinders. The fleet, reduced now to just over 4,000 ships, moved into bombardment positions. The remaining Korvathi ground forces received orders to withdraw to designated extraction points. This would be the final act. Either the humans would break under the assault, or Earth would become uninhabitable. Either way, the war would end. Miraltesh watched the preparations with growing dread. She had run simulations. Even with their reduced numbers, the Korvathi fleet possessed enough firepower to devastate the planet. The bombardment would kill billions, but something nagged at her, a sense that the humans had anticipated this moment. On Earth, alarm systems screamed across every continent. The humans had detected the fleet movements and knew what was coming. Evacuation protocols accelerated. People flooded into underground bunkers, subway systems, anything that might offer protection. Governments issued final orders to their military forces. The message was simple and terrible. If the bombardment begins, launch everything. Commander Veshkor initiated the attack at exactly midnight Greenwich Mean Time. 4,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams cut through the atmosphere. Kinetic weapons fell like deadly rain. Cities that had survived 3 months of ground fighting disappeared in seconds, consumed by fire and destruction. But the humans had prepared for this moment since the day the Korvathi arrived. As the bombardment began, every nation with nuclear capability launched their arsenals. Not at each other, as they had so often threatened during their own history, but upward. Thousands of nuclear missiles climbed toward orbit. Thousands more followed from hidden silos and mobile launchers. The Korvathi point defense systems engaged, destroying hundreds of missiles. But there were too many. The humans had spent decades building these weapons, stockpiling them for wars that never came. Now they used them all at once in a single desperate counterattack. Nuclear detonations blossomed across orbital space. Korvathi ships caught in the blasts were vaporized instantly. Those further away suffered catastrophic damage from electromagnetic pulses and radiation. The explosions created debris fields that tore through the fleet at orbital velocities, shredding hulls and destroying sensor arrays. Impossible, Admiral Kresheva shouted as his tactical display filled with red indicators. How can they reach us? These are primitive weapons. Primitive, Miraltesh said quietly, but effective. And they have thousands of them. The bombardment stopped as the fleet tried to defend itself. Ships broke formation, attempting to evade the incoming weapons. But the missiles kept coming, wave after wave. The humans were emptying their entire nuclear arsenal, accepting the radioactive consequences, trading their own future for a chance to hurt the invaders. And they were succeeding. Commander Veshkor watched his fleet die. Ship after ship disappeared from his displays. Some fell back to Earth, burning through the atmosphere to crash into oceans and deserts. Others simply broke apart, their crews exposed to vacuum or incinerated in secondary explosions. In 30 minutes of nuclear hell, he lost over 1,000 ships. Pull back, he ordered. All ships retreat to high orbit. But the humans were not finished. From the planet's surface, weapons that the Korvathi had not detected activated. Railguns, electromagnetic cannons built in secret over the last 3 months, hidden in mountains and underground facilities. They fired solid projectiles at hypersonic speeds. The projectiles carried no explosives. They did not need them. At those velocities, simple mass was enough to punch through Korvathi hulls. On the ground, the Korvathi extraction operations had become bloodbaths. Human forces, knowing this was the final battle, threw everything they had at the withdrawing aliens. Artillery that had been saved for this moment fired barrage after barrage. Tank divisions that had hidden in forests and mountains emerged for desperate assaults. Infantry charged Korvathi positions with bayonets fixed, accepting horrific casualties to prevent the enemy from escaping. In New York, a surrounded Korvathi division fought their way toward their landing craft, only to find the craft had been destroyed by human saboteurs who had infiltrated the landing zone weeks ago. The division was annihilated in the streets. In Beijing, humans breached a Korvathi command post and engaged in close-quarters combat, fighting with knives, improvised weapons, and their bare hands. The Korvathi won, but at a cost that made victory meaningless. In Moscow, a final act of defiance saw Russian forces detonate a buried nuclear device beneath a Korvathi staging area. The explosion vaporized 10,000 Korvathi soldiers and created a crater 2 kilometers wide. And then something happened that would haunt Korvathi nightmares for generations. A human assault team, using captured Korvathi equipment, infiltrated a damaged transport ship, repaired it, and flew it to the Korvathi flagship. They crashed through the hangar, bay shields before anyone could react, and fought their way through the corridors toward the bridge. Commander Veshkor watched in disbelief as the security feed showed him humans, wearing makeshift armor and breathing apparatus, fighting his elite guards in the corridors of his own ship. They moved with practiced efficiency, using tactics learned from 3 months of brutal combat. They threw captured Korvathi grenades, fired stolen weapons, and advanced without hesitation even as their teammates died around them. The assault failed. The humans died 3 corridors away from the bridge, overwhelmed by superior numbers. But they had come close. Impossibly, terrifyingly close. Veshkor stood in the command center, surrounded by damaged displays and flickering lights, and made a decision that would define him forever. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Commander Veshkor. Cease all offensive operations. Begin immediate withdrawal from Earth space. This war is over, sir, his second-in-command said, shocked. The High Command ordered. The High Command is not here, Veshkor roared. They do not see what I see. We came to conquer humans, and instead they have taught us what it means to face an enemy that refuses to die. He switched to a different channel, one that broadcast on human frequencies. He spoke slowly, using the translation software, knowing the humans would hear him. People of Earth, this is Commander Veshkor of the Korvathi Empire. We are withdrawing. Your world has proven too costly to take. But know this, we have records of your atrocities. We have evidence of your war crimes. We know what you are capable of, and we will remember. The human response came 30 seconds later, broadcast from dozens of sources simultaneously. The voice was female, speaking in accented but clear Korvathi. Commander Veshkor, this is Colonel Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense. We have something you need to hear. We found your databases. We know about the 17 species you enslaved. We know about the war crimes you committed. We have evidence of genocide, of torture, of the extinction of entire civilizations, and now we know where you live. A pause, then the killing blow. You came to conquer us. You failed, but you taught us something valuable. You taught us that we are not alone in the universe. You taught us that there are threats beyond our world, and you taught us that we need to be ready. We have your navigation data, Commander. We have your star charts. We know where your empire is. Another pause. We will see you soon. The transmission ended. Commander Veshikor felt his blood turn to ice. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had counterattacked in a way that would haunt the Empire forever. They had taken the knowledge of where the Korvathi lived, and now they were promising to come. All ships, he said quietly. Maximum speed. We leave now. The remaining Korvathi fleet, just under 300 functional ships, fled Earth space. Behind them, they left a planet in ruins, billions dead, cities destroyed, and ecosystems devastated. But humanity survived, and the humans were angry. 6 months after the fleet departed Earth, the first Korvathi ship limped into home space. It was the Crushing Fang, War Master Threnzak's former flagship, now commanded by a junior officer after everyone above him had died. The ship's hull bore scars from nuclear blasts and kinetic impacts. Parts of it were held together by emergency repairs. It barely maintained life support. The High Command sent an escort to guide it to the orbital docks. As technicians boarded the ship, they found something that would be replicated across every returning vessel. A crew that would not speak. The survivors sat in their stations or quarters, staring at nothing, responding to questions with silence or screams. Some had stopped eating. Others muttered in their sleep about humans who fought after death, about cities that burned their own people, about weapons that fell from the sky like judgment. Over the following weeks, 46 more ships returned. Some had crews. Others drifted as automated hulks, everyone aboard dead from wounds or starvation, or something darker that had no physical cause. Search and rescue operations recovered an additional dozen ships, found floating in deep space, their crews either dead or catatonic. Of the 10,000 ships that had departed with such confidence, only 59 returned. The High Command convened an emergency session. Supreme Director Kalthmar, leader of the entire Korvathi Empire, demanded answers. Commander Veshkor, who had led the retreat, stood before them to deliver his report. He had aged decades in 6 months. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes held the hollow look of someone who had seen the unthinkable. We failed, he said simply. The humans defeated us completely. Impossible, Kalthmar hissed. They are primitives. How could primitives destroy 99% of our fleet? Veshikor pulled up holographic displays showing battlefield footage. The High Command watched in growing horror as humans fought with a ferocity that defied comprehension. Civilians attacking soldiers, children carrying weapons, entire cities choosing nuclear annihilation over surrender, suicide attacks, asymmetric warfare, traps within traps within traps. They did not fight like soldiers, Veshkor explained. They fought like every single human was willing to die to kill just one of us, and there were 8 billion of them. We could not win against those odds. We could only die slowly. What of our ground forces? Another council member asked. Gone, 97% casualties. The survivors are damaged, mentally, physically, spiritually damaged. They cannot serve again. Science Officer Miral Tesh approached the council platform. She had survived because she rarely left her research station. Now she carried the comprehensive analysis that no one had wanted to read before, but that everyone needed to understand now. The humans are an apex predator species, she began. They evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill them. Diseases, predators, climate, other humans. They survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on their planet. They have been fighting for their entire existence, and they are very, very good at it. She pulled up comparative data. Every species we have conquered before shared certain traits. They had unified governments. They valued survival over victory. They had limits to what they would sacrifice. Humans have none of these traits. They are fractured, competitive, and they have no concept of acceptable losses. If destroying themselves destroys their enemy, they consider it a victory. Madness, Kalthmar whispered. Evolution, Miraltesh corrected. And now we have taught them about the wider galaxy. We have given them a reason to unite. We have shown them that threats exist beyond their world. And worst of all, we have given them our navigation data. She let that sink in before continuing. The humans are now reverse engineering our technology. Their scientists are studying our captured equipment. They have samples of our faster-than-light drives. Within a generation, perhaps less, they will achieve interstellar travel. And when they do, they will remember what we did to their world. The council chamber fell silent. Then Admiral Kresheva, one of the few senior commanders to survive, spoke. We must strike first. Build another fleet. Return to Earth and finish what we started before they can develop countermeasures. No, Commander Veshkor said firmly. I have seen what humans do when threatened. If we attack them again, they will not defend. They will hunt. They will pursue us across the galaxy. They will dedicate their entire civilization to destroying ours. And they will succeed, because that is what humans do. They pursue threats until those threats are eliminated. Then what do you propose? Kalthmar demanded. Fortification. We seal our borders. We classify Earth as a terminal threat zone. We build defenses and pray that the humans forget about us. Miral Tesh shook her head sadly. Humans do not forget. I have studied their history extensively. They remember grievances for centuries. They build monuments to their defeats so future generations will remember to avenge them. They will come, Supreme Director. The only question is when. As if summoned by her words, an aide rushed into the chamber. Supreme Director! Our deep space monitoring stations report unusual readings at the edge of our territory. Something is approaching. The Council rushed to the sensor displays. There, at the very limit of their detection range, was a ship. Not a Korvathi ship. The design was crude, clearly primitive, held together by what looked like desperation and genius. But it was moving under its own power through faster-than-light space, something humans should not have been capable of for decades. They had done it in 6 months. The ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of Korvathi space and stopped. It made no aggressive moves. It simply sat there waiting. Then it broadcast a message on all frequencies, in perfect Korvathi language. Korvathi Empire, this is the Earth vessel Defiance. We come in peace, but we come prepared. We bring evidence of your crimes against our world and against 17 other species you enslaved. We bring a message from humanity. You attacked us. You failed. You ran. Now we know where you live. A pause heavy with implication. We are willing to negotiate a peace treaty. We are willing to share technology. We are willing to establish diplomatic relations. But know this. If you ever threaten Earth again, if you harm another species, if you give us any reason to act, we will come in force. We have tasted war with you, and we found we were good at it. Do not make us demonstrate that again. Another pause. We expect your response within 1 standard day. Defiance out. Supreme Director Kalthmar stared at the display showing the human ship. It was tiny compared to Korvathi vessels. It was ugly, asymmetric, clearly built from salvaged parts. But it had crossed light years to deliver a threat to the heart of the Empire. And everyone in the chamber knew the threat was real. Commander Veshkor, Kalthmar said quietly. Compose a response. Inform the humans that we accept their terms for negotiation. Sir? Admiral Kresheva said, shocked. We are surrendering to them. We are being intelligent, Kalthmar replied. For 2 centuries we conquered through strength. Then we met humans and learned that strength alone is not enough. They are willing to die for their causes. They are willing to sacrifice anything for victory. They turned their own planet into a graveyard to hurt us. What do you think they would do to our worlds if we gave them cause? He turned to Miral Tesh. Science officer, you will lead our diplomatic team. Go to that ship. Talk to the humans. Make them understand that we seek peace. And if they do not believe us? Miral Tesh asked. Then we prepare for war, Kalthmar said grimly. But not a war of conquest. A war of survival. Because I suspect the humans will not stop until we are defeated or dead. Miral Tesh took a shuttle to the human vessel. As she approached, she could see the ship more clearly. The hull bore scars from battle. Panels were mismatched, clearly salvaged from different sources. The engines looked like they had been rebuilt a dozen times. It should not have been able to fly, let alone travel between stars. But it did, because humans had made it do so through sheer determination. The airlock opened and Miral Tesh entered. The human crew, 5 of them wearing military uniforms bearing flags from different nations, greeted her formally. The leader, a woman with gray hair and eyes like stone, introduced herself as Ambassador Sarah Chen. The same voice from the transmission during the final battle. Welcome aboard, Science Officer Miral Tesh, Chen said in perfect Korvathi. I believe we have much to discuss. How do you know my name? Miral Tesh asked. We recovered the databases from the Crushing Fang. We know about your warnings before the invasion. We know you tried to stop this war. That is why we requested you specifically for these negotiations." Chen gestured to a conference room. "Please sit. Let us talk about the future." As Miral Tesh sat across from the human ambassador, she saw something in Chen's eyes that terrified her more than any weapon. Not hatred, though hatred would have made sense. Not triumph, though humans had earned the right to gloat. What she saw was calculation. The humans were planning something. This peace negotiation was not about forgiveness or reconciliation. It was about buying time. Time to build ships. Time to develop weapons. Time to prepare for a future where humans took their place among the stars. And when that time came, Miral Tesh realized, the galaxy would change forever. The humans would not conquer like the Korvathi had conquered. They would not enslave or destroy, but they would remember what had been done to them. And they would make sure it never happened again, to anyone. Chen smiled, a very human expression that did not reach her cold eyes. "Now then, science officer, let us discuss the terms of peace. I think you will find us very reasonable. After all, we are not monsters." The emphasis on the last word made it clear who the monsters were in this story. Outside the ship, the Korvathi Empire held its breath and waited to learn its fate from a species that had taught them the true meaning of the word humanity. The survivors. The warriors. The humans.